The start of ore mining in Queensland, Australia in mid-October 2010 marks the beginning of the most important phase of our Georgetown gold project. The processing plant was completed and now had to be fed with gold ores. 2 open pits have been built for this purpose. The first open pit mine is to excavate and extract ore from the Red Dam deposit. A second one has been built in the area around our deposit, Electric Light. We are extraordinarily proud that the extraction is running so smoothly. Within just a few weeks after launching the mining process, the first ore shipment reached the processing plant. It was fed into the massive mills via conveyor belts. Shortly after, the first gold was cast into bars. But let's start from the very beginning. In October 2010, the deposit of Red Dam was still an untouched, barren but gold-bearing brushland. Many steps were needed to access the sought-after ore. 30,000 tons of gold ore are to be mined here. On the basis of exploration data, the boundaries of the open pit were calibrated and marked on-site by means of GPS. As the area is to be re-vegetated afterwards, the valuable topsoil was removed with bulldozers and excavators. It will later form the fertile base for the vegetation, as it is rich in humus and microorganisms. The ore body was truncated with small excavators under the supervision of our geologists before the excavated gold ore was inspected and systematically sampled. The respective samples were put into fabric bags and sent to the lab. Henceforth, the results form the basis of the ongoing ore extraction. Within a few days, the future dimension of the open pit mine became more and more apparent. The mining process starts with the extraction of the barren, gold-free surrounding rock. After being broken with large excavators, it is removed from the site by dump trucks. In this process, we gradually advance in stages of around 3 to 4 meters in depth. Masses of overburden have to be moved to access the only 1 to 2 meters thin ore body. Even though we are still operating in the non-mineralized surrounding strata, the process is supervised by one of our geologists, as precious gold ore could be excavated at any moment. Near the deposit, we are preparing an area to store the gold ore and the waste material. On this territory, for instance, which is currently being set up with heavy equipment, barren waste material is to be stored and to later form a huge waste tip. By gradually extracting the surrounding rock, we prepare the almost vertically standing ore body. The dark red color suggests that intensive oxidation processes must have taken effect during its formation. The deposit geologist Gregor Borg explains how these formation processes took place.
In
the Red Dam ore body, the gold is bound to sulfides, as you can see in this vein mineralization. Due to alteration in the area close to the surface, the ore was oxidized, the sulfur removed. The iron oxides lead to the red rust color. Since the machine operator only has very limited sight, the geologists on site are of crucial importance. They direct the excavator bucket unerringly into the rock, thereby ensuring the extraction of high-quality ore. Prepared in an optimum way, the ore can be extracted selectively with little impurities. The deep red rock is loaded into trucks and initially stored in a stockpile. Meanwhile, The last steps are carried out in the processing plant located 70 kilometers away in Georgetown. While the first auxiliaries for the gold extraction arrive, the plant is thoroughly examined and checked. The same is true for the huge tanks in which the gold is to be extracted. Important lines and tubes are diligently installed, since they will later serve to transport thousands of tons of ore and hundreds of kilos of gold. Electric lines are equally inspected and adjusted and programmed accordingly. In the meantime, the ore is loaded into so-called road trains in Red Dam. These typical heavy Australian trucks with 3 trailers can load up to 75 tons of ore and transport it to the processing plant in Georgetown several times a day. This requires maximum concentration for the drivers, as most of the route is a narrow and unpaved dirt road. From afar, the booming noise of the engines announces the arrival of the road trains. On the dusty road, the precious freight is brought to the processing plant, 70 kilometers away from the deposit, before being unloaded. Up to 4 road trains reach the processing plant every day and feed it with gold ores. In Red Dam, the drill rig is now coming into operation. While the weathered and soft rocks in the upper strata of the deposit can be extracted exclusively with excavators, the increasingly hard rocks in higher depths can only be obtained by blasting. Holes are drilled into the rocks and then filled with explosives. The holes are connected with detonating cords which conduct the firing pulse to every single hole with incredible speed. The area is evacuated, and the charge finally detonates.
Yeah, still in position, area still secure. Okay, so the camp, you still in position, area still secure. Yeah, in position, area still secure. I'm at Tallery 4 Drive.
9, 8,
area still
7,
secure.
6,
Fire
5,
the shot in
4,
the next 30
3,
seconds.
2, 1, 0.
In this way, we advance gradually into the rock, approaching the final depth of 18 meters. From the aerial perspective, the real extent, the structure as well as the organization of the open pit becomes obvious. Next to the actual mine, you can clearly see the waste pit. The combination of the red rock, together with the green of the vegetation and the often clear blue sky, are particularly appealing. In the meantime, the production process has begun in the processing plant. The ore is transferred on conveyor belts into the massive ball mills. Subsequently, the finely milled ore suspension is transferred to the leaching tanks, where the gold is eluted, a process that takes a couple of hours. This suspension also contains many little carbon beads, so-called activated carbon, that are derived from coconut shells. The gold is bound to this activated carbon and can then easily be recovered. The gold is separated using electricity. In the last step, the gold is melted down and cast into bars. Red hot, it flows into the bar mold. While the light slag is draining off at the top, the heavy gold is conglomerating at the bottom of the mold. The gold bars are stamped and marked, and are now ready for the first proud presentation. The cast of the first bar was, of course, a great event, so it is not surprising that besides the corporate management from Heidelberg, many guests attended the celebration. And while gold is being cast in Georgetown, mining operations have already started in the second deposit, electric light. But we have already seen how that works in detail.